did you do? You married my father? And you're pregnant?
Yes, dear. Your little brother will be born in 3 months.
The expression of pure shock on his face was just the beginning. Because 6 months ago, this same man betrayed me with my own sister, called me a failure, and told me I would never be anything. But today I was about to reveal something that would destroy not only him, but the entire narrative he had built about me. And the best part? He had no idea who I had really married. Before I tell you what happened at that baby shower, hit that like button if you want to see real justice, subscribe to the channel, and comment deserved down below. Because this story has betrayal, revenge, and a final revelation that will leave you breathless. Nobody was prepared for what came next. Let's go. My name is Emma. I'm 28 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I was married to Daniel, a handsome, charismatic man who worked as a sales manager at a tech company. We had been together for 4 years, married for 3 of them. I was an elementary school teacher, the kind of woman who believed in true love, in building a future together, in the power of dedication and sacrifice. Daniel was everything I thought I wanted. Tall, confident, always well-dressed, always with that smile that made my heart race. When we met at a mutual friend's party, I felt like I had won the lottery. He pursued me with intensity, sent flowers to my work, wrote romantic messages, planned elaborate dates. 6 months later, we were engaged. A year after that, we were married in a beautiful ceremony that I had dreamed about since I was a little girl. But marriage, as I would learn, is very different from dating. The romantic Daniel who sent flowers gradually transformed into a man who was always busy, always stressed, always with an excuse for why he couldn't be present. I convinced myself this was normal. He was building his career. He was working hard for our future. I just needed to be patient and supportive, so I became the perfect wife. I woke up early to make his breakfast. I packed his lunch with care. I kept the house impeccable. I cooked elaborate dinners even after working 8 hours at school with 30 energetic children. I washed his clothes, ironed his shirts, organized his schedule. I sacrificed my time, my energy, my own dreams because I believed we were building something together. When Daniel said he wanted to do an MBA to advance his career, I didn't hesitate. The course cost $15,000. We didn't have that money saved, but I had a small inheritance from my grandmother, money I had been saving for years for our future, maybe for a down payment on a house. I gave it all to him, every penny, because I believed in us, because I believed in him. "You're investing in us, in our future," he told me, holding my hands with those intense eyes. "I'm going to make it worth it, I promise." I believed him. God, how I believed him. My sister Sophie was 3 years younger than me. We had grown up close, sharing a room, sharing secrets, sharing dreams. But as we got older, something changed. Sophie became competitive. She always wanted what I had. If I bought a dress, she bought a similar one, but better. If I got a promotion at work, she complained that her job didn't recognize her talent. If I posted a photo with Daniel, she commented something subtly critical. But I loved my sister. I made excuses for her behavior. She was just insecure. She was just going through a difficult phase. She would mature with time. Sophie visited our house frequently, 2-3 times a week. She said she missed me, that she wanted to spend time with her big sister. I welcomed her with open arms. I cooked for her. I listened to her complaints about her life. I gave her advice. I even lent her money when she said she was struggling. Daniel seemed to like having her around. "Your sister is fun," he would say. "It's good to have family close." I felt grateful that my husband and my sister got along so well. How naive I was. The signs were there. I just refused to see them. Daniel started coming home later and later. "Work meeting," he would say. "Drinks with clients." His phone was always face down on the table. He took calls in another room. He changed his passwords. When I asked why, he looked at me with irritation. "You're being paranoid, Emma. Trust me." That phrase, "trust me." He repeated it so many times that it became a mantra. Every time I questioned something, every time my intuition screamed that something was wrong, he would say those two words and I would swallow my doubts. I found women's perfume in his car once, a scent I didn't recognize, definitely not mine. My hands were shaking when I showed him the bottle I found under the passenger seat. "A female client left that," he said without even blinking. "She was testing perfumes and forgot it in my car." "Emma, seriously, you're being paranoid. This jealousy is unhealthy." I apologized. Can you believe that? I apologized for being paranoid. I apologized for not trusting my own husband. I apologized for having the audacity to question him. But something had changed inside me. A small seed of doubt had been planted. I started paying more attention. I started noticing patterns. Sophie would cancel our lunch plans at the last minute with vague excuses. Daniel would have emergency meetings on the same nights. They both became evasive when I asked about their days. One night I couldn't sleep. I took Daniel's phone while he was in the shower. My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped it. I knew his password because until recently he had never hidden it from me. But when I tried to unlock it, the password had been changed. My heart sank. When he came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed, his phone in my hands. "New password?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He snatched the phone from my hands. "Jesus, Emma! Privacy much? Yes, I changed it. The company requires it for security reasons. Why are you acting like this?" "Like what?" "Like a crazy, jealous wife. I'm working my ass off to build a future for us, and all you do is doubt me, question me, invade my privacy. I'm starting to regret marrying someone so insecure." His words felt like slaps. I cried that night after he fell asleep. I questioned myself. Was I being crazy? Was I destroying our marriage with my paranoia? Maybe I was the problem. 2 weeks later, Daniel came to me with an opportunity, a business investment. A friend of his was starting a company and needed capital. If we invested $12,000, we could triple that amount in 6 months. It was a sure thing, a guaranteed return. "This is our chance, Emma," he said, with enthusiasm in his eyes. "This is how we get ahead. This is how we build real wealth." I hesitated. $12,000 was all I had left from my grandmother's inheritance after paying for his MBA. It was my safety net, my emergency fund. "I don't know, Daniel. That's all the money we have saved. We have to take risks to win big, babe. I've done my research. This is solid. Trust me." There it was again. Trust me. Those 2 words that had become my prison. I transferred the money the next day. Daniel kissed me and said I wouldn't regret it, that in 6 months we would be celebrating our brilliant decision. I never saw that money again. But at that moment, I still believed, I still hoped, I still trusted. The breaking point came on a Friday night in late March. I had plans to have dinner with my friends, something I rarely did because I was always so busy taking care of the house and preparing Daniel's things. But my friend Jessica had insisted, practically dragged me out of the house. We went to a nice restaurant downtown. I was actually having fun, laughing, feeling like myself again for the first time in months. But then Jessica got a call. Her daughter had a fever. She needed to go home. The dinner ended earlier than expected. I arrived home at 11:15 p.m. The lights were on, which was strange because Daniel had said he would be working late. Sophie's car was in the driveway. My heart started pounding. Why was my sister's car at my house at 11:15 on a Friday night? I took a deep breath. There could be a logical explanation. Maybe she had come to visit and was waiting for me. Maybe something had happened and she needed help. Maybe I was once again being paranoid. I opened the front door silently. The house was quiet except for voices coming from the living room. I could hear laughter, intimate laughter, the kind of laughter that makes your stomach drop because you just know, that something is terribly wrong. I walked slowly toward the living room, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. The door was slightly open. I could see through the crack, and there they were, my husband and my sister, on my couch, the couch I had picked out, that I had saved for months to buy. They were kissing. His hands were in her hair. Her hands were unbuttoning his shirt, and they were laughing between kisses, like they were having the time of their lives. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet, like I was falling into an endless void. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I could only stand there frozen, watching my entire world collapse. Then I heard Daniel's voice. Emma is so naive. She actually believes everything I tell her. Sophie giggled. I almost felt bad when she gave you that $12,000. Almost. Why would you feel bad? She's always been the stupid one in the family. Always so trusting, so pathetic. At least you have ambition, unlike your loser sister. They both laughed. They laughed at me, at my pain, at my stupidity, at my love. Something inside me broke, not my heart. My heart was already destroyed. What broke was my fear, my need to be liked, my tendency to make excuses for people I loved. I pushed the door open. Emma! Daniel jumped up from the couch, buttoning his shirt frantically. This isn't what it looks like. Really? My voice sounded strange, even to my own ears. Cold, detached. Then please explain to me what you and my sister are doing on my couch at 11 p.m. on a Friday night, half naked and laughing about how naive and stupid I am. Sophie didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She just sat there, fixing her hair, looking annoyed that I had interrupted. Emma, you're overreacting, Daniel said, and I marveled at his audacity. Sophie and I were just talking. Talking, with your tongue down her throat. Of course, how silly of me to misinterpret that. Listen, the truth is, Daniel said, and his tone changed. The fake apologetic expression disappeared, replaced by cold irritation. You're never here. You're always working or tired or focused on your students. You've neglected me, Emma. What did you expect? I stared at him in disbelief. I neglected you? I cook for you every day. I clean. I do your laundry. I gave you $15,000 for your MBA. I gave you $12,000 for your business investment. I sacrificed my promotion at work because you said you needed me to be more flexible with my schedule for your career. I neglected you? See, this is exactly the problem. He crossed his arms. You keep score of everything. Every little thing you do, you throw it in my face. That's not love, Emma. That's manipulation. Sophie finally spoke. Emma, honestly, you've always been so selfish. Always thinking about what you want, what you need. You never thought about what he needs, what makes him happy. I looked at my sister. This person I had loved my entire life, and I didn't recognize her. Get out, I said quietly. What? Daniel laughed. Get out? This is my house, Emma. I pay the mortgage. Our house. I paid half of the down payment. I've been paying half of everything. Prove it. There's nothing in your name. I made sure of that. So actually, Emma, you get out. I'm done with this marriage. I'm done with your paranoia and your nagging and your pathetic neediness. Get your shit and get out of my house. Sophie laughed. Actually laughed. I looked at both of them, these two people I had loved and trusted more than anyone in the world, and I realized something. They weren't worth my tears. They weren't worth my anger. They weren't even worth my words. So I left. I drove to the small apartment I had rented before we got married, the one I had kept as a rental property. Thank God I had never sold it. I let myself in, sat on the floor, and for 3 days, I didn't move. I didn't eat. I barely drank water. I just sat there staring at the wall, trying to understand how my life had become this disaster. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. My principal called, worried because I had taken sick days for the first time in 4 years. My friends tried to reach me, but I didn't answer. I couldn't talk. I couldn't explain. I couldn't face the pity in their eyes when they learned what had happened. But on the 14th day, something shifted. I woke up and I was angry. Not sad, not heartbroken. Angry. I had given everything to that man. I had sacrificed my money, my time, my energy, my dreams, and he had thrown it all away for my sister. He had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible, and then he had kicked me out of my own house. No, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I called a lawyer that same day. His name was Marcus Chen, and he came highly recommended by a friend. I sat in his office and told him everything. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Emma, I'm not going to lie to you. Without proof, this divorce is going to be very difficult. He has the house in his name. He has the financial records in his name. You can claim you contributed, but if you don't have receipts, bank transfers, some kind of documentation, it's your word against his. And in court, that's not enough. My heart sank. So I lose everything? After everything I gave him, I just lose? I didn't say that. Do you have anything? Any emails about the money? Text messages? Bank statements showing transfers? And then I remembered. The security cameras. 3 months before everything fell apart, I had installed security cameras in the house. 2 in the living room, 1 in the kitchen, 1 at the front door. Daniel had complained about them, said they were invasive, but I had insisted. I told him it was for security, to monitor the house when we were away, to keep an eye on our dog Max when we were at work. He had reluctantly agreed, probably because he didn't want to look suspicious by refusing too strongly. Those cameras backed up to cloud storage, and I still had access. I have cameras, I said slowly, in the house. They record everything and save to the cloud. Marcus sat up straight. Do you still have access to the recordings? I think so. Let me check. I pulled out my phone and opened the app. My hands were shaking. Please work. Please still work. The app loaded, and there it was. Months of footage. I scrolled to the night I had caught them. I pressed play. There they were. Daniel and Sophie, on the couch, kissing, undressing, and then clear as day, their conversation. Daniel's voice. Emma is so naive. She actually believes everything I tell her. Sophie's voice. I almost felt bad when she gave you that $12,000. Almost. Daniel. Why would you feel bad? She's always been the stupid one in the family. I kept scrolling. There were more videos, dozens of them. Daniel and Sophie together in my house over the course of months, making out on the couch, drinking my wine, mocking me, planning how to get more money from me. In one video, Daniel was on the phone. No, there was no investment opportunity. I used that money to pay off my gambling debts. Emma has no idea. She'll never find out. In another, Sophie was bragging to Daniel. She actually thinks we're close. She thinks I come here to spend time with her. It's pathetic. I looked up at Marcus. He was watching the screen with wide eyes. This, he said quietly, changes everything. This is proof of infidelity, proof of financial fraud, proof of conspiracy. Emma, you don't just have a divorce case. You have grounds for a lawsuit, multiple lawsuits. For the first time in 2 weeks, I smiled. Don't tell Daniel we have this, Marcus advised. Let him think you have nothing. Let him think he won. People get sloppy when they think they've already won. We'll use this at exactly the right moment. I nodded. I understood. Timing was everything. I agreed to all of Daniel's divorce terms without a fight. I didn't ask for the house. I didn't ask for alimony. I didn't mention the money I had given him. His lawyer was surprised by how agreeable I was. Daniel was smug, thinking he had gotten away with everything. Perfect. 2 months after I moved out, I was sitting in a coffee shop near my apartment, working on lesson plans for my students. I was thin, exhausted, still healing from the betrayal, but I was functioning. That was something. A man walked by carrying 2 cups of coffee. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with gray hair and kind eyes. He was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, nothing flashy, but something about him radiated quiet confidence. He glanced at his phone while walking and didn't see me sitting there. He bumped into me. Hot coffee spilled all over my laptop and my white blouse. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He immediately put the cups down and grabbed napkins, trying to help clean up the mess. I wasn't paying attention. "I'm so sorry. Is your laptop okay?" I was annoyed at first, but when I looked up at him, my annoyance faded. He looked genuinely horrified by what he had done. His eyes were kind, worried, not the eyes of someone who was used to hurting people. "It's okay," I said, trying to save my laptop. "Accidents happen." "No, it's not okay. Please let me pay for the dry cleaning of your blouse. And if your laptop is damaged, I'll replace it. Here, let me give you my number." He handed me a business card. Richard Anderson. That was all it said, along with a phone number. No company name, no title, nothing else. "You really don't have to," I said. "I insist. Honestly, I feel terrible. Please call me and let me know the damage." He smiled at me, a warm, genuine smile, and something inside my chest loosened slightly. I hadn't felt anything but pain for months, but this stranger's kindness made me feel something different, something almost like hope. "Okay," I said. "I will." He left, and I looked at the business card for a long time. Richard Anderson. I wondered who he was. I wondered if I would actually call him. 2 days later, my blouse came back from the dry cleaners. Ruined. The coffee stain wouldn't come out. My laptop was fine though, which was a relief. I looked at Richard's card. I didn't need him to pay for the blouse. It wasn't expensive, but something made me pick up my phone. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I needed to believe that not all people were like Daniel and Sophie. Maybe I just needed to talk to someone who didn't know my story, who didn't look at me with pity. I called him. "Richard Anderson speaking." "Hi, this is Emma. We met at the coffee shop? You spilled coffee on me?" "Emma, yes, I'm so glad you called. How's your laptop? Your blouse?" "Laptop is fine. The blouse is ruined, but honestly, it's not a big deal." "It is a big deal. Listen, let me take you to dinner to apologize properly. Nothing romantic, just let me make it right." "What do you say?" I hesitated. I wasn't ready to date. I was still technically married even though the divorce was in progress. But dinner with a kind stranger didn't sound terrible. "Okay," I said. "Dinner sounds nice." We met at a small Italian restaurant the following Saturday. Richard was already there when I arrived, standing when he saw me, pulling out my chair like a gentleman. When was the last time Daniel had pulled out my chair? We talked for 3 hours. Richard was easy to talk to. He listened, really listened when I spoke. He asked thoughtful questions. He told me about his life, his work in business consulting, his love for classic cars and hiking. He was 50 years old, divorced for 5 years, no children. I was married for 15 years, he told me. We wanted different things in life. It ended amicably, but it was still painful. That's why I'm in no rush anymore. I'd rather be alone than be with the wrong person. I found myself telling him about my divorce. Not the details, not about Sophie, but just that my marriage had ended and I was rebuilding my life. "Anyone who let you go is an idiot," Richard said simply. "I mean that. You're smart, you're kind, you're beautiful. You deserve someone who sees that." I blushed. I hadn't blushed in years. We saw each other again the next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. Richard was different from any man I had ever dated. He was mature, stable. He didn't play games. He said what he meant and meant what he said. He made me feel safe. He took me to museums and art galleries. We went hiking in the mountains. We had long dinners where we talked about everything from philosophy to our favorite childhood memories. He made me laugh again. He made me feel alive again. I told him about Daniel after our 5th date, the whole story. The betrayal with my sister, the financial fraud, everything. I expected him to run. Who wants to deal with someone else's messy divorce drama? But Richard just held my hand across the table and said, He didn't deserve you. And someday, he's going to realize what he lost. But by then, you'll be so far ahead of him that he won't even be able to see you anymore. I fell in love with Richard slowly and then all at once. He didn't rush me. He was patient. He waited until I was ready to kiss him, ready to take the next step, ready to open my heart again. 3 months into our relationship, Richard came to my small apartment with a serious expression. My heart sank. Here it comes, I thought. He's going to end this. But instead, he got down on one knee. Emma, I know this is fast. I know you're still healing. But I'm 50 years old, and I know what I want. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to spend every day making you happy. I want to build a life with you. Will you marry me? I stared at him in shock. Richard, we've only been together for 3 months. I know. And if you need more time, I'll wait. But I also know that when something is right, it's right. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Emma. I don't want to let you go. I looked at this man who had given me back my faith in love, in trust, in happiness. This man who treated me like I was precious. This man who made me feel seen and valued for the first time in years. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. We got married in a small civil ceremony 2 weeks later. Just us and 2 witnesses. Nothing fancy. But it was perfect. Richard slipped a simple gold band on my finger and kissed me, and I felt like I had finally come home. My divorce from Daniel was finalized 1 month after I married Richard. Daniel didn't even show up to court. His lawyer handled everything. He still didn't know about the cameras, about the evidence I had collected. Marcus advised me to wait. We're going to use all of this, Marcus said. But not yet. Trust me. 1 month after I married Richard, I started feeling sick in the mornings. At first I thought it was stress. The divorce, the new marriage, everything was a lot to process. But when the nausea continued for a week, I took a pregnancy test. Positive. I was pregnant. I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the 2 pink lines, and I cried. But this time, they were happy tears. This baby wasn't a product of betrayal and lies. This baby was made with love. This baby was wanted. This baby would be born into a home where both parents cherished each other. When I told Richard, he cried too. He picked me up and spun me around and told me he had never been happier in his entire life. That night, we lay in bed, his hand on my stomach, talking about baby names and nursery colors and the future. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Richard was incredibly private about his work. He never talked much about it, and I didn't push. I knew he was successful in business consulting. We lived comfortably. He owned a nice house in a good neighborhood. But he didn't flaunt his wealth. He drove a simple car. He dressed simply. He was humble and down to earth. Money doesn't define a person, he told me once. Character does. Integrity does. How you treat people when nobody's watching, that's what matters. I loved that about him. After Daniel, who was obsessed with status and appearances, Richard was refreshing. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. 4 months into my pregnancy, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Emma? Daniel's voice. I hadn't heard it in months, and it made my stomach turn. What do you want, Daniel? We need to talk about the divorce settlement. There are some loose ends. The divorce is finalized. There are no loose ends. Just meet me for coffee, please. I want to apologize. For everything. I almost laughed. Apologize. Now. After everything. But then I thought about what Marcus had said. Let him think he won. Let him get comfortable. And then strike. Fine, I said. Wednesday at noon. The Starbucks on Main Street. I called Marcus and told him about the meeting. He smiled. Perfect timing, he said. I think it's time we make our move. But first, let's see what Daniel wants. I showed up to the coffee shop on Wednesday wearing loose clothing that hid my pregnancy. I wasn't ready for Daniel to know yet. I wanted to control that narrative. He was already there when I arrived, and when he saw me, his expression was smug, satisfied, like he had won some great prize. Emma, you look well, he said. which was code for you look like you've lost weight and you look tired. What do you want, Daniel? He sighed dramatically. I wanted to apologize for how things ended. I handled it badly. You cheated on me with my sister, stole my money, and kicked me out of my own house. Badly is an understatement. I know, but I want you to understand it wasn't personal. Sophie and I just connected on a different level. And I'm happy now, Emma. Really happy. I wanted you to know that I'm with her now. We're together officially. Was he seriously telling me about his relationship with my sister? Did he expect me to be happy for him? Good for you, I said flatly. The thing is, he continued, and here it comes. The real reason for this meeting. Sophie is pregnant. I felt my stomach drop, but I kept my face neutral. Congratulations. Yeah, thanks. But you know, babies are expensive. And I was thinking, about that money you gave me for the investment. I know things didn't work out with us, but that money was for a business opportunity, right? So technically, it wasn't a gift. So I was hoping we could work out a payment plan or something. I could pay you back slowly. I stared at him. You want me to let you pay me back slowly? The $12,000 you stole from me. I didn't steal it. You gave it to me willingly. For a business investment that didn't exist. You used it to pay gambling debts, Daniel. I have proof. His face went pale. Proof? What proof? Wouldn't you like to know? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Listen, Emma. Don't try to come after me. You have nothing. You signed away everything in the divorce. You have no claim to anything. If you try to cause problems, I'll make your life hell. I stood up. You already did. And you know what? You're right. I don't have a claim on the house or any of your stuff. But what I do have will make what you did to me look like a mercy. See you around, Daniel. I left him sitting there, confused and angry. Perfect. That night, I talked to Richard about everything. About Daniel's threats, about Sophie's pregnancy, about my anger and my need for justice. Richard held me close. Emma, I've been thinking. Your ex-husband hurt you in ways I can't even imagine, and I want him to understand what he lost, what he threw away. So I have a proposal. What kind of proposal? Let's have a baby shower. A big one. Invite everyone. Your family, your friends, colleagues, and invite Daniel and Sophie too. I pulled back to look at him. Why would I invite them? Because, Richard smiled. I think it's time they learned the truth about who you really married, don't you? I stared at my husband, and slowly a smile spread across my face. Richard Anderson, you're a genius. I have my moments. We spent the next 3 weeks planning the most elaborate baby shower anyone had ever seen. Richard wanted everything to be perfect. He hired a party planner. He rented a beautiful venue with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He ordered custom decorations in pink and gold. He hired a photographer and a videographer. He invited 50 guests from his business circle, people I had met briefly but didn't know well. I sent an invitation to Daniel and Sophie, a beautiful, expensive invitation on cream-colored cardstock with gold lettering. You're invited to celebrate the upcoming arrival of Emma and Richard's baby girl. Daniel called me the next day. What is this? An invitation to my baby shower. I thought you'd like to come. After all, we used to be family. You're pregnant with who? My husband, Richard Anderson. We've been married for 5 months. There was silence on the other end. Then, who the hell is Richard Anderson? Someone who treats me the way I always deserve to be treated. Someone who sees my value. Someone who would never betray me. Will you come? Both you and Sophie are invited. Why would we come to your stupid baby shower? Because, I said sweetly, it will be enlightening, trust me. You don't want to miss this. I hung up before he could respond. On the day of the baby shower, I woke up feeling nervous and excited. This was it. The day I had been planning for months. The day Daniel would finally understand the magnitude of his mistake. Richard kissed my forehead. You ready for this? More than ready. I wore a beautiful designer maternity dress in pale pink. Richard had insisted on buying it for me. It was elegant and expensive and made me feel like a princess. My hair was professionally styled. My makeup was perfect. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Gone was the tired, sad, broken Emma. In her place was a confident, glowing, beautiful woman who had survived the worst and come out stronger. The venue was stunning. White and gold balloons everywhere, fresh flowers in crystal vases, a champagne tower, a dessert table that looked like something from a magazine, tables draped in silk, chairs with white covers and gold ribbons. Everything was perfect. Guests started arriving at 2 p.m. Richard's business associates, my friends from work, some relatives. Everyone was dressed beautifully, carrying expensive gifts, exclaiming over the venue and the decorations. At 2:30, Daniel and Sophie walked in. I watched them from across the room. They looked so out of place. Daniel wore a wrinkled button-down shirt and khakis. Sophie wore a cheap dress that was too tight across her own pregnant belly. She was 5 months along, and she looked miserable. They stood at the entrance, staring at the mansion we were in, the elegant guests, the expensive decorations. Sophie whispered something to Daniel. He looked angry. I walked over to them, Richard at my side, his hand resting protectively on my lower back. "Daniel, Sophie, I'm so glad you could make it." I smiled warmly as if we were old friends. Daniel looked at Richard and his eyes widened slightly. There was something familiar about my husband's face, something that made Daniel pause. "This is my husband, Richard," I said. Richard extended his hand. "Nice to meet you both." Daniel shook his hand automatically, still staring at Richard's face, trying to place him. Sophie just glared at me, her eyes roaming over my dress, my jewelry, the massive diamond ring on my finger. "Quite the party," Daniel said with a forced smile. "Must have cost a fortune. How did you afford all this?" "My husband is very generous," I said. "Please help yourselves to champagne and appetizers. Mingle, enjoy." They walked away, whispering to each other, looking around with a mixture of confusion and resentment. I could see Sophie pointing at things, probably calculating how much everything cost. Daniel kept glancing at Richard, something nagging at the back of his mind. The party went on beautifully. My friends gave speeches about how happy they were for me. Richard's colleagues congratulated us. We played baby shower games, opened presents, cut into an elaborate cake. I was genuinely having a wonderful time, surrounded by people who cared about me, celebrating new life and new beginnings. But I was also watching Daniel and Sophie, watching them become more and more uncomfortable, watching them realize that they were completely out of their depth, that I had moved on, that I had moved up. At 4 p.m., Richard stood up and tapped his champagne glass with a fork. The room fell silent. "I want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate with Emma and me," he began. "As many of you know, Emma and I met during a difficult time in her life. She had just come out of a painful divorce. She had been betrayed by people she trusted. She had every reason to be bitter, to be closed off, to never trust again." I felt tears prick my eyes. Richard looked at me with so much love, but instead, he continued, "She chose to be brave. She chose to heal. She chose to open her heart one more time, and I am the luckiest man in the world that she chose me. Emma, you are the most incredible woman I have ever met. You are strong, compassionate, intelligent, and beautiful. You are going to be an amazing mother. I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life with you." Everyone applauded. I wiped away tears. Richard kissed me softly. And then I saw Daniel making his way through the crowd toward us. Sophie was right behind him, her face twisted with jealousy and rage. "Here we go." Daniel pushed through the last few people, and suddenly he was standing right in front of us. His face was red. His hands were clenched into fists. "What did you do?" he shouted, loud enough that the entire room went silent. "You married my father, and you're pregnant?" The room gasped, 50 people inhaling at once. I felt every eye in the room turn to us. I smiled, gently caressing my 6-month baby bump. Yes, darling. Your little brother will be born in 3 months. Daniel turned to Richard, his face going from red to purple. Dad, what the hell are you doing with my ex-wife? Richard's expression remained calm. I married her, Daniel. Something you clearly didn't know how to appreciate. This is insane. Daniel was almost screaming now. She's my ex-wife. You can't just marry her. That's sick. That's disgusting. What's disgusting, I said calmly, is cheating on your wife with her own sister. What's disgusting is stealing her money. What's disgusting is kicking her out of her own home. But please, Daniel, tell everyone here how disgusting I am for falling in love with a man who actually respects me. Sophie finally spoke up, her voice shrill. You did this on purpose. You married his father to get back at us. I looked at her, this woman who used to be my sister. Actually, Sophie, I had no idea Richard was Daniel's father when I married him. He never mentioned having a son, and honestly, when I found out, I almost left. But then I realized something. Richard is nothing like Daniel. Richard is kind. Richard is honest. Richard would never betray the people he loves. So no, I didn't marry him to get back at you. I married him because he's the best man I've ever met. A woman in the crowd started clapping, then another, then more. Soon half the room was applauding. Daniel and Sophie stood there, humiliated as the crowd showed me their support. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Since we're all here, I said loudly, and since Daniel decided to make a scene, I think it's time everyone knew the truth about what really happened in our marriage. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the large screen TV that the party planner had set up for showing baby photos. Instead, I played a different video. The image appeared on the 70-inch screen. Daniel and Sophie on my couch, kissing, laughing. The audio played through the speakers. Daniel's voice. Emma is so naive. She actually believes everything I tell her. Sophie's voice. I almost felt bad when she gave you that $12,000. Almost. Daniel, why would you feel bad? She's always been the stupid one in the family. The room was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Every person was staring at the screen in horror. I played another clip. Daniel on the phone admitting there was no business investment, that he had used my money to pay gambling debts. I played clip after clip. Months of betrayal, documented and undeniable. Daniel tried to grab my phone. Richard blocked him, his hand firm on Daniel's chest. Don't even think about it, son. You had no right, Daniel was screaming. Those are private. Private? I asked. You were in my house, my cameras. In case you forgot, I paid for half of that house, half of everything in it. Those cameras? I bought them. So actually I had every right. Sophie was crying now, mascara running down her face. Emma, please. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Please don't do this. Don't do what, Sophie? Tell the truth? Show people who you really are. Why? Did you think about me when you were sleeping with my husband? Did you show me mercy when you laughed about stealing my money? I pulled out an envelope and handed it to Daniel. Speaking of money, these are legal documents showing that you committed fraud. I have evidence of your gambling debts, evidence that you lied about the business investment, evidence that you knowingly stole $12,000 from me. My lawyer has already filed charges. The police will probably contact you next week. Daniel's face went white. You're bluffing. Am I? Try me. You stole from me, Daniel, and theft is a crime. I'm done letting you get away with it. A man in the crowd spoke up. Wait, is this Daniel Morrison from Tech Vision Solutions? Daniel turned. Yes, why? I'm James Carter, CEO of Tech Vision. Daniel, you're fired. I will not have a thief and a fraud representing my company. Security will escort you out Monday morning to collect your things. Daniel looked like he might pass out. You can't fire me. I absolutely can. And I'm going to make sure every company in this industry knows exactly what kind of person you are. Good luck finding another job. Sophie grabbed Daniel's arm. Let's just go. Let's get out of here. But I wasn't finished. Actually, Sophie, before you go, I have something for you too. I handed her a manila envelope. These are the results of the paternity test you took last month. Her face went even paler. How did you used your insurance to pay for it. Insurance that was under Mom and Dad's family plan. The results were sent to their house. Mom showed them to me last week. She wanted me to know the truth before anyone else did. Sophie clutched the envelope like it was a bomb. Daniel grabbed it from her hands and opened it. His face as he read the results was something I wish I had captured on video. 0% match, he read out loud. His voice was hollow. 0%. Sophie, this baby isn't mine? She was sobbing now, full-on hysterical sobs. I can explain. You lied to me. You told me you were pregnant with my baby. Who's the father, Sophie? Who? She ran, just turned, and ran out of the mansion, still crying, still carrying her shame with her. Daniel stood there, staring at the paper, his entire world crumbling around him. But oh, I still had one more bomb to drop, the nuclear option. A woman in an elegant black dress approached us. She looked to be in her early 60s, beautiful, with kind eyes. Richard smiled when he saw her. Emma, he said, I'd like you to meet someone. This is Patricia Morrison, Daniel's mother, my ex-wife. I had met Patricia once before, briefly, when Richard first told me about his family. She was lovely and had been nothing but kind to me. She knew the whole story of what Daniel had done. Patricia walked up to Daniel and slapped him across the face. Hard. The sound echoed through the silent room. I raised you better than this, she said, her voice shaking with anger. I raised you to be honest, to be kind, to treat people with respect. And you turned into this? A cheater, a thief, a liar. You disgust me, Daniel. Mom! Daniel's voice broke. I don't want to hear it. You destroyed a good woman because you were selfish and cruel. And now you're getting exactly what you deserve. She turned to me and took my hands. Emma, my dear, I am so sorry for what my son did to you. He does not represent how I raised him. You deserved so much better. And I'm glad you found it with Richard. He's a good man. The best man I know, actually. Our marriage didn't work out, but I never stopped respecting him, and I can see he adores you. She hugged me, and I hugged her back, feeling the genuine warmth and support from this woman who had no obligation to be kind to me, but chose to be anyway. Richard put his arm around me. Daniel, there's one more thing you should know. Emma didn't marry me for money. She didn't even know I had money. I made very sure of that. I wanted her to fall in love with me, not my bank account. So I never told her about my businesses, my investments, my real estate portfolio. I dressed simply. I drove a normal car. I lived modestly. I wanted to know that she loved me for me. Daniel laughed bitterly. So what? You're loaded now. Is that the big reveal? A man in an expensive suit approached us. Excuse me, I couldn't help overhearing. I'm Thomas Bradshaw, CEO of Bradshaw Investments. Richard, I didn't know this was your party. I was invited by the Hendersons. Small world. He turned to Daniel. You must be Richard's son. You should be very proud of your father. Richard Anderson is one of the most successful businessmen in the country. His company, Anderson Industries, has a market value of over $10 billion. He personally owns 15 different businesses across 6 countries. Forbes estimated his personal net worth at $3.2 billion last year. He's a legend in the business world. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a heartbeat. Daniel stared at Richard, then at me, then back at Richard. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. 3.2 billion, he whispered. Billion, with a B. Give or take, Richard said casually. I don't keep close track. Money is just a tool, Daniel. What matters is how you use it and how you treat people, something you never learned. I watched Daniel's face go through every emotion. Shock, disbelief, rage, despair. He had called me a failure. He had called me worthless. He had said I would never amount to anything. And here I was, married to one of the richest men in the country, pregnant with his child, glowing with happiness, while Daniel had nothing. By the way, Richard added, almost as an afterthought, about that inheritance you were expecting from me, Daniel. I've rewritten my will. You are no longer a beneficiary. Everything I have will go to Emma and our children. Consider it a consequence of your actions. Daniel fell to his knees. Actually fell to his knees right there in the middle of the party. No, 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 Dad, please! That's my inheritance. You can't just give it to her. I can and I did. You're 32 years old, Daniel. You should have been building your own life, your own success, instead of counting on money you didn't earn. Maybe this will teach you something, though I doubt it. Daniel looked up at me with pure hatred in his eyes. You planned this. All of this. You manipulative bitch. Richard moved to defend me, but I put a hand on his arm. I knelt down so I was eye level with Daniel. I didn't plan any of this, I said softly. I met Richard by accident. I fell in love with him naturally. I married him because he makes me happy. The only thing I planned was this moment where you finally understand what you lost. Not the inheritance, not the money. Me. You lost me, Daniel. You had a woman who loved you unconditionally, who sacrificed everything for you, who would have walked through fire for you. And you threw it all away for cheap thrills with my sister. I stood up. The difference between you and me? When I lost everything, I rebuilt. I healed. I found genuine happiness. But you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing you destroyed the best thing that ever happened to you. And that knowledge will eat you alive. I turned to Richard. I think we're done here. Should we cut the cake? Richard smiled at me with so much love and pride. Yes, darling. Let's cut the cake. Security guards appeared from somewhere. Richard must have arranged that in advance, and gently but firmly escorted Daniel out of the mansion. He was still on his knees, still looking shell-shocked, still processing the magnitude of what he had lost. The party resumed. People came up to me, hugged me, told me I was brave and strong. They congratulated Richard and me on our upcoming baby. They asked about nursery plans and baby names. The incident with Daniel became just a strange interlude in an otherwise beautiful celebration. But I kept thinking about the look on Daniel's face. The moment he realized that I hadn't just survived without him, I had thrived. I had found real love, real respect, real partnership, everything he had claimed I would never have. Sophie called me 3 days later. I let it go to voicemail. She left a long, rambling message about how sorry she was, how she never meant to hurt me, how she was pregnant and alone and scared. She begged me to talk to Mom and Dad on her behalf because they had cut her off after seeing the videos. I deleted the message without listening to it all the way through. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Daniel texted me 2 weeks later. Just one line. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I wasted on him. Sorry doesn't erase the betrayal. Sorry doesn't undo the pain. Sorry is just a word, and words from Daniel had proven to be meaningless. My lawyer, Marcus, called me a month later with good news. Daniel had agreed to pay back the $12,000 plus interest and legal fees. He was also facing charges of financial fraud from his company. TechVision had discovered he had been embezzling small amounts over the course of 2 years. Between my case and the company's case, Daniel was looking at serious jail time. Justice comes in many forms, Marcus said. Sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it takes time, but it always comes. 3 months after the baby shower, I gave birth, not to one baby, but to 3. Triplets, 3 beautiful, healthy baby girls. Richard was there for every moment of the labor, holding my hand, telling me how strong I was, crying when each of our daughters entered the world. We named them Hope, Grace, and Joy, because that's what they represented. Hope for a better future, grace in the midst of chaos, joy after so much pain. Richard was the most devoted father I had ever seen. He changed diapers at 3 a.m. He walked the floors with crying babies. He sang lullabies off key and didn't care. He took paternity leave from his company for 3 months just to be with us. He said nothing in the world was more important than his family. I went back to teaching part-time when the girls were 6 months old. Not because we needed the money, we certainly didn't, but because I loved my job. I loved shaping young minds. Richard supported that completely. He hired a nanny to help, but he was hands-on whenever he was home. We were a team, a real partnership. Everything my marriage to Daniel had never been. One day I was pushing the triple stroller through the park with the girls. They were 8 months old, chubby and happy, wearing matching pink dresses that Richard had insisted on buying. I stopped to sit on a bench and give them their bottles. A woman sat down next to me. I glanced over and my heart stopped. It was Sophie. She looked terrible, thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was dirty and pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was holding a baby, maybe 4 months old, who was crying. "Emma," she said quietly, "please don't walk away. I just want to talk." I should have left. I should have taken my daughters and walked away without a word. But something made me stay. Maybe curiosity, maybe pity. Maybe I needed this final closure. "What do you want, Sophie?" "I wanted to see you. To apologize. Really apologize. Not just because I want something from you, but because I need to say it. What I did was unforgivable. I destroyed our sisterhood. I destroyed your marriage. I hurt you in ways I can't even put into words. And I'm so sorry." Her baby kept crying. She bounced him half-heartedly, but she looked exhausted. "Is that Daniel's son?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "No. Turns out the baby is from a one-night stand I had when Daniel and I were fighting about whether to leave you. The father wants nothing to do with us. Daniel wants nothing to do with us. Mom and Dad want nothing to do with us. I'm completely alone, Emma. I lost everything and I deserve it. I know I deserve it." I looked at my 3 daughters, sleeping peacefully in their stroller. I looked at Sophie's crying baby, probably hungry or needing a change. I looked at my sister, broken and alone, reaping what she had sown. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication, joy that karma had done its work. But I didn't. I just felt sad. Sad for the sister I used to have. Sad for the relationship we would never get back. Sad that she had made choices that destroyed her life. "I forgive you," I said quietly. Sophie looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "What?" "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. Not because what you did was okay. But because holding on to anger and hatred is poisonous. It would eat away at me and destroy the beautiful life I've built. So I forgive you, Sophie. But that doesn't mean I want you in my life. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation." "I understand," she whispered. I stood up and started pushing the stroller. Then I stopped and turned back. "Sophie, you're not alone. You're a mother now. You have a son who needs you. Don't waste this chance. Be better for him than you were for me. Get therapy, get help. Figure out why you made the choices you made and fix it. Not for me, not for anyone else. For yourself and for that baby." I left her sitting there on the bench, crying quietly, holding her son. I never saw her again. 6 months after the triplets were born, Richard surprised me. He had been working on something in secret for months, and he was finally ready to reveal it. He took me to a beautiful building downtown, modern and sleek, with floor-to-ceiling windows. There was a sign outside. "The Emma Anderson Foundation for Education." I stared at him in shock. "Richard, what is this?" "This is your foundation. I set it up in your name. It provides scholarships for underprivileged children, funds schools in low-income areas, trains teachers, provides supplies and resources. Everything you've always talked about wanting to do if you had the means. Well, now you have the means. This is yours to run however you want." I couldn't speak. I just stood there, tears rolling down my face, staring at this incredible gift. You told me once that every child deserves a chance at education, Richard said softly. That no kid should be limited by their zip code or their parents' income. So let's make that happen. Let's change lives, Emma. Together. The foundation became my passion project. I hired incredible people who shared my vision. We gave out hundreds of scholarships in the first year alone. We built new computer labs in struggling schools. We trained teachers in underserved communities. We provided books and supplies and hope. I was making a real difference in the world, not just for my own family, but for thousands of children who needed someone to believe in them. And through it all, Richard was by my side, supporting me, encouraging me, believing in me, loving me. 2 years after the baby shower, I received a letter in the mail. The return address was a prison. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. It was from Daniel. He was serving a 3-year sentence for fraud. In the letter, he didn't ask for anything. He just wrote about how much time he had to think in prison, how he had finally understood the magnitude of what he had done, how he was getting therapy and facing his addiction to gambling and his need for validation through manipulation and lies. I destroyed the best thing in my life, he wrote. I hurt you in ways I can never take back. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I finally see it. I finally understand what I lost. You were everything I needed, and I was too broken and selfish to appreciate it. I hope you're happy, Emma. You deserve all the happiness in the world. I folded the letter and put it away. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pain. Just nothing. Daniel was part of my past, a chapter that had closed long ago. He had no power over me anymore. My present and my future were with Richard and our daughters and the life we had built together. A life based on trust and respect and genuine love. A life where I was valued and cherished. A life where I could be myself without fear of judgment or betrayal. 3 years after that day at the coffee shop when Richard had spilled coffee on me, the luckiest accident of my life, I was standing in our kitchen watching him make pancakes for our 3 daughters. They were 3 years old now, running around in their pajamas, giggling and fighting over who got to help Daddy flip the pancakes. Richard looked up at me and smiled. What are you thinking about? Just how different my life is now. How I almost gave up on love. How I almost let Daniel and Sophie break me. And how grateful I am that I didn't. He walked over and kissed me softly. I'm the grateful one. You took a chance on a stranger in a coffee shop. You trusted again when you had every reason not to. You let me love you. That was the bravest thing anyone has ever done. Our daughters climbed onto our legs, demanding attention, demanding pancakes, demanding everything children demand. We laughed and picked them up and sat down to breakfast as a family. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Jessica. Did you see the news? Daniel got released early from prison for good behavior. He's working at a warehouse making minimum wage. Sophie is waitressing at a diner. They're both struggling. I put my phone away without responding. Their struggles were not my concern. I had spent too much energy on them already. I had my own life to live, my own family to love, my own impact to make on the world. That evening, Richard and I stood on our balcony, watching the sunset over the city. The girls were asleep. The house was quiet. We held hands, comfortable in the silence that comes from knowing someone completely. Do you ever regret it? Richard asked suddenly. Marrying me? Getting pulled into the drama with Daniel? Any of it? I turned to look at him. Regret? Richard, you gave me back my life. You showed me what real love looks like. You gave me 3 beautiful daughters and a purpose bigger than myself. The only thing I regret is not meeting you sooner. He smiled. Even though I'm your ex-husband's father? Even though that's objectively weird. I laughed. Especially because of that. The look on Daniel's face when he realized I married you? That was worth everything, but honestly, I would have married you even if you weren't his father. Even if you weren't a billionaire. even if you were just Richard, the coffee-spilling stranger. Because you, just you, are more than enough. He kissed me as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And I thought about how strange life is. How the worst thing that ever happened to me, Daniel's betrayal, had led me directly to the best thing that ever happened to me, Richard's love. How sometimes you have to fall apart completely to be rebuilt into something stronger. How sometimes the people who hurt you end up doing you the biggest favor of all by showing you what you don't want, what you won't tolerate, what you truly deserve. Daniel had wanted to destroy me. He had wanted to leave me broken and defeated and empty. Instead, he had freed me. He had pushed me out of a comfortable mediocrity and forced me to rebuild from scratch. And in that rebuilding, I had found real happiness, real love, real purpose. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes the best revenge is living so well, so fully, so joyfully, that the people who tried to break you become irrelevant. They become a footnote in your story, a brief chapter that led to something better. As I stood there with Richard, in a home filled with love, with daughters who would grow up knowing they were cherished, with work that mattered and a partner who truly saw me, I realized something profound. Daniel hadn't destroyed me. He had liberated me. He had freed me from a life that looked good on the surface, but was hollow underneath. He had pushed me toward the life I was actually meant to live. And for that, in a strange way, I was almost grateful. Now let me ask you something. What would you have done in my place? Did I go too far? Did I not go far enough? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. We post stories every single day, so stay tuned. I'll see you in the next story. Bye.